Two sides to every tale. The Fall of Troy. A short story by Jared I. McGee. Psst. Of course the fires were consuming Troy. They didn't listen to her. Again. All these bull-headed men had been celebrating mere hours ago, and now? Now they were being slaughtered by the men they thought beaten and in flight. A horse. A gods be damned horse. Who could possibly think that was a normal thing for a defeated besieging army to toil endlessly on and then leave as an oops, sorry we caused a generation of war gift? Stupid people. Stupid men. Stupid people. Every single time. She knew what was coming. And they wouldn't believe her. Whether it was Paris having a forthcoming pimple that would ruin one of his dates, or the gender of Hector's baby, or the day her father would die, they never believed. Then again, that wasn't their fault. Not really. Instinctively, she looked up to the sky, seeing the moon and realizing it was night. No sun there right now. Troy would burn by the time Apollo rode across the sky once more. Fucking Apollo. It was his fault she was in this predicament. She could have been ignorantly, blissfully in her cups right alongside her Trojan countrymen, celebrating with too many glasses of wine, getting handsy with the nearest warrior. No, warriors, not too afraid to fuck the king's daughter, and generally riding those stallions until she too was surprised and killed by these damnable Greeks. That propensity for wine and men are what led her in the first place. Fucking Apollo. Who could blame her? He was a god for Zeus's sake. The sun god. The reason the earth lived. The reason the cold, fearful, fretful time of night gave way to the gorgeous, warming bounty of day every day. In her defense, when he had come down to her, radiating warmth and pulsing with an orange glow, as if his skin were on fire with no flames, she had refused him. All that rippling muscle, that perfect body, that crackle of power that came with the sun god, and she had refused him. It was only after he promised to gift her superhuman abilities that she was seduced into disrobing and starting a nice little one-nighter with the celestial charioteer. He must have only bestowed her with limited prophecy with that first burst of light he'd blasted her with. Because she knew damn near everything that would happen in the world after that bolt, yet she did not see the betrayal that was coming her way. Instead, she reeled at the power and the knowledge that was coursing through her. It turned her on like she'd never been turned on before. All knowledge of all events for forever? Man, oh man. As Apollo began to suckle her neck and fondle her breasts through the sheer linen of her evening frock, she couldn't help but shudder and become far more bestial and voracious a lover than she'd ever been before. And that was saying a lot. All those scrawlings of Cassandra craves cocks all over the various taverns of Troy weren't completely slanderous and off base after all. With that thought somewhere distant in her memory, she had giggled, shrugged off the white linen, and pushed the god to the ground. That's right, pushed the god to the ground. She'd pushed a divine being. She'd made their rendezvous not more than a quick fuck on the cold of the rugless stones rather than some massive bed made for princesses and gods. She thought it bold and hilarious then. Now, she felt queasy at the hubris she'd exhibited. She knew better than to exhibit that of all traits. Shit. She'd seen all the greats rise and fall because of too much pride. And there she was, her past self, riding Apollo like he was some stud stallion of the future officers' corps of her father's army. But no way, no how. Apollo was a god. He was of the same ilk as those other wily gods and goddesses that bedded mortals, fucking them literally, then finding some way to fuck them metaphorically for the remainder of said mortals' remaining time on Earth. There she'd been, pumping her hips, laughing as she saw the god of the sun biting his bottom lip and rolling his eyes back in his head in ecstasy. There she'd been, seeing his pulse rise, if that was a pulse at all she'd seen and not just some feigned attempt to make him appear mortal. There she'd been, sensing that, as was always the case with her lovers, she'd expertly pushed and ground and danced them into submission and toward the edge of climax. There she'd been, as Apollon, Arcado-Cypriot, Epelion, Eploun, Apullo, the Curun, the driver of the sun, whispered in a voice thick with musty, husky desire the fateful question of whether she'd take him in her mouth for that final release. In the moment, she'd said yes, something she'd never, well, rarely done before, having always refused. She was a princess, and she was the one to be worshipped and pleased, of course. Cassandra was thankful that history and myth would take this down as Apollo having spit in her mouth during a kiss. For all intents and purposes, that is what he did, but the gory details of what he spit and what kind of kiss it had been were lost immediately upon her swallowing. That was one small comfort for her, she thought. As soon as Apollo had ejaculated to her undulating tongue, the force of the god's explosion ripping down her throat unbidden, her eyes had shot open and the world had shaken. That cum tainted her prophetic gift. He'd tricked her. With a laugh, he rose into the air, told her to enjoy hell on earth and that women and men alike did not refuse a god their whims, and, in a flash, he was gone. From then on, her life was, indeed, just as Apollo had hatefully boomed at her while the divine semen was still warm in her. Hell on earth. Time and time again, she tried to warn people, praise people, help people, counsel people. Time and time again, those warnings, that praise and all the help and counsel fell on deaf ears. She was always met with scorn and derision, laughter and a pat on the back. After a few months, she began to fully realize just how heavy of a curse her prophetic abilities were. As death and destruction and rape and murder filled her predictions for the future, of Troy's future, of her and her loved ones' future, she tried to drink and fuck and drug her way to something resembling pleasure or numbness or anything besides what her reality had become. But no. There was no means of escaping what was to come. Neither cups, nor pussies, nor smoke, nor vapors, nor cocks, nor food. No. Nothing could push off those eventualities. When she fucked, she only saw her future rapists. Ajax, Agamemnon, Greek after Greek leading up to her capture and enslavement. When she drank, she was launched forward in time, seeing Hector dragged around dead and dishonored, Achilles deep in his own wineskin, her mother and father weeping and wailing in disbelief. When she got stoned, she saw the eons it would take for her people to be remembered as real. And, when that remembrance finally took hold ages hence, that memory would be tainted and wrong. It would ring inauthentic. The Trojans wouldn't be the defenders of honor, the peaceful, kind people that were minding their own business. They would be the villains, the weaklings, the soft culture more concerned with bedding a pretty girl than keeping its people safe and fed and warm. When she ate, the flesh of the meat brought her only visions of her own flesh being shredded with hate and malice by Aegisthus and Clytemnestra. Her life would end because of sordid fucking. Of course, she always laughed about this. Her life had already ended a while back because of sordid fucking. It wasn't all doom and gloom as she watched the slaughter, though. Her foresight also included the knowledge that she and some of her closest family members, not to mention a great many other Trojan heroes, would come together once more and be happy in Elysium. Well, maybe happy wasn't the right word. This same foresight let her know that eternity, as humans thought of it, even eternity in the Elysian fields, was far from happiness in the way that mortals thought of it. Tedium was more like it, but still, at least she knew that her original devotion to her chosen gods and her family's heroic deeds would reunite some of them after this grisly business was done. That was all in the future, though. For now, she tried to enjoy the glow of the fires consuming her home. When one is given the gift of prophecy, the future holds no surprises. It holds no joy. So, after years of misery, she'd learned how to live in the moment, and that's what it had to be for her. That very moment, that very second, each and every breath was where she was, banishing those thoughts of the future and trying to find the joy in even the worst of things. Tomorrow, that would mean pretending brutal men were her lovers. Tomorrow, that would mean feigning deference to a mad, licentious king. Tomorrow, that would mean counterfeiting relaxation in a bath that would end in daggers and bloody lovers coupling near her still warm body. Tonight, though, tonight, she would bask in the effulgence of the city aflame, that brilliance that would live for millennia, long after she was bored in paradise. Thank you for listening to Two Sides to Every Tale, The Fall of Troy, the second in the Two Sides to Every Tale series. The backing track for this story was taken from freesound.org. The track was created by deleted_user_3667256 and is being used under a CC0 1.0 Universal Public Domain Dedication License. Next up from Prose, we have Narcissus or Ad Mortem. Please stick around.